Well, greetings everyone, and welcome once again to another Wednesday night right here at the Sports Crib. Uh, as you can see, we'll get our little commercial stuff out of the way here. On the bottom of the screen, you can subscribe and donate. To our station on YouTube. Our Cash App is $JEK3. And with that, we'll get started. I see Don is here and uh, Dave is here. So let's get this ball on the road here. Good evening, Dave. How you doing?
Hey, good to be back home. I stopped briefly in your territory on my way back home. So
You get it's fogged in.
no, I went home via Los Angeles. So I had a flight out of Los Angeles Monday morning.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Did you get fogged in? You said, or did you get delayed in L.A.?
No, it was
Oh,
no problem at all.
yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Don, how you doing?
I'm doing great, James. How y'all?
All right, everything's going well. It's a little cloudy out here today, but other than that, hey, it's October. You know, what can you say?
Hey, yesterday the high in San Antonio was 96. Today the high was 83.
Hey,
You wear a jacket?
I will tomorrow morning. I'll wear a sweater.
oh my goodness. Uh, so, did you happen to get back in time to get a Sue's Corner for us?
I did.
Okay.
So here's what Sue had. Since we are in the baseball playoff season, I thought it would be fun to bring up some legendary baseball events, such as the pine tar incident. And I'm sure Bill would know this. On July 24th, 1983, in a game against the New York Yankees,
Is that your radio in the background, Don? Is that your radio or TV, Don?
What's that?
Do you got a radio or TV on in the background?
Oh, yeah, I'll turn it down.
Okay, go ahead, Dave.
Okay, on July 24th, 1983, in a game against the New York Yankees, George Brett of the Kansas City Royals hit a crucial home run off closer Goose Gossage, flipping the score to a 5-4 lead for the Royals. However, the celebration was short-lived as the Yankees challenged the amount of pine tar on Brett's bat, leading to an umpire's decision that nullified the home run and declared Brett out, causing an immediate and fervent dispute that has since become legendary. Brett charged the umpire and had to be restrained from throwing a punch. Everything was in chaos, and it continued for weeks. What is funny in today's world of big money in sports, this rule was about saving money. The spirit of the restriction on pine tar on bats was not based on the fear of giving an unfair advantage, but simple economics. Any contact with pine tar would discolor the ball, rendering it unsuitable for play, and require that it be discarded and replaced, thus increasing the home team's cost of supplying balls for a given game. The Royals contested the game's outcome, and the American League president, Lee MacPhail, overturned the umpire's decision. Now, this is weeks after, reinstating the home run and rolling the game to be completed from the point of the controversy. This led to the game's resumption on August 18th, 1983. Remember, the game was played July 24th, where the Royals emerged victorious. The incident prompted Major League Baseball to amend its rules regarding the use of pine tar ensuring that a similar dispute would not recur. And I think it's not how much pine tar, how thick it was, but how far up the
How
bat
far
it
up the
was.
bat it was? Yeah, that
I remember
was the
correctly.
whole controversy. Yeah, that was because he used one of those bats that I think the handle area was like clearly marked in gray or something like that, and the pine tar went above the line on the bat. Yeah, shit. Yeah, 1983. Well, I was a young guy then. Jeez. Don, you recall that?
I do. I had forgotten that they resumed the game. I just remember George Brett. Was that the same year he was flirting with 400? Was that the same year?
I think it was. I think what was he in
Yeah.
396 or
Yeah,
something like that?
I remember he was flirting with the 400 batting average, and then he came down to the case of hemorrhoids, which was, yeah, I think later on he made a Preparation H commercial based on his hemorrhoids, and then
Oh, that's where the ball went between his legs, wasn't it?
maybe, and then the whole pine tar controversy, I think, was the cake on that season. So I love George Brett, but that was a fun year because I remember watching, because not all games were televised. So you have to watch the news, read the paper to see, what did he hit that day. He went 3 for 4 or whatever. So it was interesting. I think he ended up like with the a 3.85 average for the season. I think he missed it, but he was up there.
No, and it was that season when he flirted with 400 was 1980, and he ended
Okay.
up batting 390.
390. Okay. So when was the pine tar incident? Was that was
83.
83? Oh, okay, okay. So the years have missed in my memory.
Well, guys, we talked about the playoffs a little bit here. The Yankees are up 2-0 on the Clownigans, of course. So I'm happy. Anytime a team in Cleveland loses, of course, raises my temperature there a little bit. But what do you guys think? Look like those Yankee bats are pretty hot. And the main thing is, I think they're keeping Cleveland off the base pass.
Yeah.
They,
Well, I mean, I think in the first two games were in New York. Now
yeah,
they're shifting over to Cleveland. And what's interesting is the starters that they have for this next game are just Clark Schmidt is 5-5 for the Yankees, and the Guardians of the Galaxy are going with Matthew Boyd, who's 2-2, and so it's kind of an interesting choice in the starters. But I think that this next game that could determine if the series is going to end in Cleveland. Because if the Yankees win that game, they just have to take one out of the next two in order to in order to win the series.
is
And
is,
I think
is
it's going
this
to come down to who has the deeper bullpen.
is this a best of seven?
Yes.
Oh, okay, all right. Don, I know you don't follow those Eastern teams too much, but what do you think? The $1 million babies are going to get by or what?
It would seem that way. I mean, the Yankees, they have a system in place, and they've, I really thought that Cleveland had a chance, early when the series started, but the Yankees are playing lights out. So we'll see how it goes. Maybe they can add some. Maybe they need to add some pine tar to their bats.
Well, now the other series, the National League series, seems to be pretty even. It's 1-1, and right now, the last I looked, I think the Dodgers were up 2-0. They are there was a little talk about moving Otani in the batting order. I guess due to the fact that he hasn't had any home runs or stolen bases yet. But what do you think about that series? You think it's going to go to distance time?
Yeah, I would love to see the Dodgers win that, just because I think baseball needs a Yankees Dodgers series, just like the old days.
Okay.
I would love to see that, but of course, you got to take care of business first. But I would love to see that on a personal level.
Dave, what about the Yankees and the Mets? I mean, Subway Series. We haven't said when's the last time we had one of those?
It's a long subway from LA to New York now, but
if the Mets pull it off, Mets Yankees, man. I mean,
yeah. There you go. Exactly. So I think what the Mets need to do is if they can pull off this game, but still they've got 2 more games in New York. So they've started their 3-game stretch in New York. So it's 2 games in LA, which they split. 3 games in New York, and then the last 2 games are back in LA. And but it looks like it's interesting because I think that they started Walker Buehler, the Dodgers, who's like 1-6, but he seems to be getting the job done. I think he's had 4 strikeouts so far, and I believe he's still pitching. So it's going to be interesting. But I think the Mets, they're in a little bit better shape than the Guardians and the other one right now. But they got 3 games. If they can pull this one off, then they got 2 other games. But I think that the Dodgers are going to win. Probably in 6 games is what my guess is.
Well, I mean, hey, neither one of them are hurting for money in their lineups. That's for sure. So. But I mean, I guess, I mean, there's no Cinderella here. I mean, these are all the favorites in the game. So, but it would be interesting. It's just when I need Bill and his statistics, to find out when was the last Subway Series. Was it the Brooklyn Dodgers against the Yankees, or I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was the Mets, though. I think it was the Mets against the Yankees was the last Subway Series.
Yeah, well, I'm sure Bill would know off the top. I would have to look it up, but
I'm sure
Bill would know right off the top of his head.
Bill would know off the top. He'd know the starting pitchers, their fathers. But anyway, hopefully Bill will be jumping in maybe a little later. I'm sure Mr. Scott will be. Well, no, it's a bye week for the Vikings, but I'm sure he'll be sneaking in. But we know that Reggie's still abroad. I think he'll be back next week or the week after. So.
I was hoping that both Demetrius and Anthony would be on tonight.
Oh yeah.
There's a big game coming up.
Yes, it is. I know that I saw something from Demetrius today about beating the Cowboys. So I was hoping that he might have gotten here, but I'm sure Mr. Scott will be sneaking in pretty soon. Guys, I was going to ask the question here about that Oregon game. But I'll get down to that because I just read an article where it says that the NCAA closes loophole on Oregon's 12-man penalty. Well, that doesn't do any good for my Buckeyes, but what the hell. Anyway, we'll talk about that as the subject comes up. But Don, your number one Texas put on a smackdown on the number 18 Sooners. The Longhorns won that Red River rivalry 34-3. Don, I'm sure you don't have any remorse for that beatdown.
Yeah, that
Oh,
game.
by the way, Don, I have to tell you that I love the Lion King. Was it the Lion King when you said it's dark over there?
Yeah, yeah, we don't go there, Oklahoma. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so the thing about this game, uh, you know, usually, and this year's no different. Both teams are ranked. Oklahoma's going to struggle when they get to SEC, but that's another story. But it's a true rivalry game. I mean, you can throw out all the records because there was a game a few years ago when Texas played TCU and got beat by 40 points, and they were terrible. This was back when Charlie Strong was coach, and they took on Baker Mayfield and Oklahoma Sooners, and the Sooners were like, I want to say 14-point favorites, and Texas beat them. They sacked Baker Mayfield like 4 or 5 times. So this game is played with such emotion and such intensity that any team, no matter the records, could come up on top. And that's always a concern. And if you watch the game, Texas struggled the first quarter. Quinn Ewers is coming off the pulled muscle in his abdomen, and so he was kind of rusty. But then they scored like 21 points within a 4-minute period. I mean, just boom, 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 explosive. And the Texas defense, people talk about the offense, with the receivers and, Quinn, Arch Manning. The defense is what's carrying this team right now. They are playing lights out. They've only allowed 3 touchdowns all year. 2 of those were against the second, third team in garbage time. So, in Oklahoma, Oklahoma does have a pretty solid running game. They have a athletic quarterback who makes plays with his feet, and they kept them out of the end zone. Not only they keep out of the end zone, they kept them out of the red zone until the last minute of the fourth quarter. So Texas defense is playing pretty good. Got Georgia this week. That will be a must-see game. I'll be there. Me and my girlfriend will be there. So I'm looking forward to playing the Georgia Bulldogs.
Okay. All right. Well,
I just wanted to say that Texas is the clear number one. The 2 through 5, they've all had close games, and Texas smoked a ranked team in Oklahoma, and so I'm just wondering with this Georgia game, is that going to be a close game, or is that going to be another decisive victory for Texas? But right now, I think that they're number one until somebody's able to knock them off, and I don't see who right now.
To be honest, I think Georgia will be tough. They'll present a test, but right now the SEC, hell, I'm worried about Vanderbilt. They got to go to They got to play Vanderbilt, who've won their last 2 games convincingly. Kentucky's tough. I mean, you never know what you'll get with Ole Miss. You might get Ole Miss kick ass, or you might get Ole Miss smell ass. You just never know. And then you got those, the goat copulating Aggies. I mean, the final game, and that's in College Station, and weird things happen there. So, still got a lot of season to play. Texas will have to keep their head on swivel and bring the emotion intensity with each play.
Yeah, you don't want to take any of them for granted. It's just
Mm-mm.
that all these other teams have already had a loss or close games, and I guess we're going to be talking about a couple close games coming up here. But Texas, the way they beat Oklahoma decisively, and if they can do that against Georgia, I mean they're just basically asserting themselves as long as they don't let down.
Yeah.
yeah, I think our rankings this week show that there's going to be a lot of teams with at least one defeat And we still have two teams, I think, that are ranked that have two losses, including I think was is it your Ole Miss team? But I'll get down to it. Uh, Ducks quarterback Dylan Gabriel put together a winning drive to beat my Buckeyes 32-31. The Ducks move up to number 2, and the Buckeyes fall to number 3. But did a lack of knowledge cost the Buckeyes? And does this call for a rule change? Well, I guess the article that I just read kind of answers that question. It says the NCAA is closing the loophole used by Oregon to shave time off the game clock at the end of Saturday's win over Ohio State. In a release Wednesday, the NCAA issued a new rule interpretation on how to handle a penalty for 12 players on the field in the final 2 minutes of either half. If the defense has 12 players actively participate in the down, the offense can choose, along with the 5-yard penalty, to have the game clock reset to the time that has been displayed at the snap. No time change would have made it if there were 12 players, but one of them was attempting to leave the field and did not affect the play. Guys, what do you think here? I was asking. Well, now we see the rule change. So, uh, would this rule change have happened if this had not been such a big game, or do you think the rule change would have came about anyway? Either one.
Either way,
Well, I mean, one, I think that they should check out the contracts that Oregon has to make sure that perhaps they've contracted Bill Belichick as an
yeah,
advisor. I mean, because this sounds exactly like something that he would do. I mean, Belichick was famous for taking advantage of the rules. He would take the rules, and then if there was a way to shave off time, by purposely doing a penalty, and it helped his team, he would do it, and then the NFL would have to respond. It sounds exactly like something Bill Belichick would do. But amazingly, I mean, Ohio State still had 6 seconds to play on their last play with a timeout, I think. I think the game ended and they still had a timeout to use.
Right, but
And
but by him running,
they were trying to get into position for that last field goal, and then time expired.
yeah,
That last 6 seconds, like if the I think it was Howard or if he had gone to the ground just a split second faster with the timeout, they might have had a shot at attempting a field goal to steal the game away. But that was like a slugfest. They were going back and forth, and who's going to take it. And I mean, as far as like if these had been two small teams playing that weren't televised or something like that, they probably wouldn't change the rules. But that's what television does, is it exposes this, and it shows something that, hey, that's not quite cricket. They didn't break the rules, but they took advantage of the rules, and
well,
so hence they had to make a change.
under this new rule, he would they would have the offense would have gotten time back, and they would have been able to set up for a field goal.
They would have had more time.
Right, because they would have got
Yeah.
the time back that was from the time of the snap, so they would have had enough time to set up for a field goal. But Don, if this had been San Antonio State against Kent State, would we have had a rule change?
probably not. That's just the high profile games get all the attention, and I don't think they really need a rule change. You just need to enforce what they have. But they're always screwing with the rules, you know. Pro football, we had the new kickoff thing, which I'm still not sold on yet, but we'll see. We'll see if they change because of this. I don't
Yeah,
think they should, but we'll see.
well, they already have. That article was written today, so they already. It's already.
But it doesn't take effect now, does it? It takes effect next year, right?
No, it takes effect immediately.
The mid-season change.
Yeah,
Oh,
it takes effect now.
I missed that part.
Yeah,
That's kind of radical.
yeah, it takes effect now. Not no. Yeah, that's why I was,
Oh wow.
I asked the question on Monday, and I got my answer by Wednesday. So
But I don't think that Oregon can be sanctioned because I don't think that they broke
no,
the rule. They
no.
operated within the rules.
Yeah. I mean, that game stands. There's nothing that they can do to Oregon or anything else. I mean, like he was Belichickian. He did what it was. It was outside the box, but it was within the rules.
Right. It's sort of like a long time ago when I think it was at the Raiders. They purposely fumbled the ball forward
Yeah.
into the end zone and scored a touchdown, and then they had to change the rules.
They changed that
and
rule
advance the ball on a fumble.
on a fumble.
I mean, they change every year. They tweak the rules every year, and then
But see, my understanding is that they do that at the end of the season when they have their owners officials meeting. I know that they were changing it mid-season because that's.
But they have. I mean, there's a precedent.
Okay.
I can't think of any examples in the NCAA, but I know in the NFL, it's like, for example, they changed the rules on protecting a quarterback mid-season where you could not land on top of a quarterback. And so literally they changed that 4 games into a season. James Harrison landed on the quarterback and then he got penalized. And it was like he just tackled the guy. And that really, it took a while for some defenders to adjust to that. And that was a mid-season change.
Yeah. But this is the NCAA, and
right.
So they do strange things, but like I said, I asked the question to myself on Monday, and Wednesday we have an official rule change. Dave, undefeated Penn State beat USC in overtime, 33-30. Penn State moves up to number 3. Hey, what's going on down there in Happy Valley?
Well, I did pass through LA Monday morning, and I did see a number of Penn State fans still there at, like 7 a.m. flying out. And we congratulated each other on the respective games. I think what Penn State did, that's normally a game that they would have lost. They were playing from behind all game. USC really, every time Penn State would do something, USC would respond, and then they were score up, they were score up, they were score up. But Penn State hung in there to win the game, which was good for Penn State because usually they were losing those games under James Franklin. But number 3 is too high of a rank for Penn State. That's not a number 3 team. They're a top 10 team, but I don't see them in the top 5 in the nation. But this will sort out as the season goes on. Allar's arm is not going to be enough to carry that team. They need to have their running game on track. Nick Singleton was coming off of an injury. He ran 10 carries for 26 yards. That's not going to cut it. And Allard, he was using a tight end, Tyler Warren, 17 receptions by Tyler Warren, which I think tied a record for tight ends receptions in a game. But they're not going to be able to go to that well every time. These other teams, the stronger teams are going to adapt to that. And they really need to get their running game on track and they need to get this defense. You can't be giving up 30 points a game and expect to carry on. So, to me, Penn State is maybe a 7 or 8 ranked team, and we'll see as the season goes on how that transpires. But it was a great win for them because a lot of times that they've lost these types of games.
Well, they kept that O, and I think that's what propelled them up because they kept that O. So we'll see how things shape out because now we have a bunch of one-loss teams in the top 25, and as I said, we have two-loss teams, and we're going to talk about one of those now. Don, number 13 LSU handed number 9 Ole Miss its second SEC loss. Ole Miss dropped to number 15, but Don, is Ole Miss hanging on by a thread? They already have 2 losses in the conference.
Yeah. So at the beginning of the year, we had this discussion amongst some of my San Antonio football fanatic friends, and we're talking about the playoff system and said it's a given that there's going to be probably 6 or 7 teams in the playoffs with 1 loss. And then it became, well, what about 2 losses? Well, if one of your losses is at a conference and one of them is in conference, there's a slight chance a 2-loss team could make the playoffs, depending on who you beat and who you lose to. If you have 2 losses in conference, I think you're pretty much eliminated. I think that's the way it's kind of leaning. So hanging on by a thread, I think that thread's been cut when they lost to LSU. I think that was a deal breaker. And LSU is a good team. They're not great this year. I mean, this is not your Joe Burrow's LSU by any means, but they can still beat people. They're still very talented on paper. But so is Ole Miss, and Ole Miss, their schedule gets tougher actually. So I think they're kind of, like I said, that thread's been cut.
Okay, all right. Dave, Pittsburgh remains undefeated, defeating California 17-15. Oddly enough, Pitt didn't score in the second half. They kind of hung on to win this one, but Pitt moves up to number 22. Dave, you thought that that was too high for Penn State. What about Pitt?
No, I think 22 is a fair number for them. They're undefeated. I mean, you have other teams like Army. I mean, they're not going to go anywhere in the college football playoffs, and neither is Pitt. But I think 22 is a fair assessment for them right now. Their test is going to be against Syracuse next week. I think that's going to be a much stronger test for Pitt. Holstein only had 133 yards passing, but their defense came through, and so that was good. Sometimes, like where Don was talking about, Texas is putting it all together. They got the offense and their defense, and it's clicking all together. Complementary football. And what's happening here in the case of Pitt is like, okay, the offense was carrying the team for a few weeks, and then all of a sudden they took it off, but then the defense stepped up. And what they need to do is they need to get both units performing well, and they'll probably need both units performing well in order to beat Syracuse.
Okay. All right. Well, I think.
The thing I forgot. The thing that in Pitt's, they were predicted to finish last in the ACC, so they're actually surprising some people here.
Yes, most definitely. So let's talk some National League football. And we'll start with our Thursday night game. The 49ers took over first place in the West. Brock Peters threw for 3 touchdowns and a 36-24 win over the Seahawks. And the return of Debo, he was targeted 5 times. He caught 3 passes for 102 yards and a TD. What do you guys think about that game? Thursday night, must win for Frisco, and they came across.
Yeah, well, it was a must win for both teams, and San Francisco prevailed. And I guess one of your questions was about, why was Geno Smith throwing so much? And part of what happened in that game is that they fell behind 16-3, and I think that might have been the halftime score. And the problem is when you're falling behind by 2, almost 3 scores like that, well, you're going to have to start throwing the ball. But I think what's happening with the 49ers is all of a sudden Ayuk is getting into game shape. They've lost Christian McCaffrey, but they're getting enough production out of their running backs. So they're hurt, but every team is hurt. Every team has significant players injured, but I think that the 49ers are turning the corner.
One of the reasons why I was asking about Geno Smith, Don, is because he's thrown over 80 passes in the last 2 games.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a huge amount of passes to be thrown. I mean, that'd be a large amount of passes thrown in 3 games, So, yeah.
Yeah. So what did you think of the game overall, Don?
It was entertaining to watch. I'm kind of I go for 49ers here and there because, their head coach is a Longhorn as usual. I always go for the Longhorns, but I think that they just need to hold the line until they can get McCaffrey back, because I think that adds another dynamic. I thought I heard that he's going to be out a while. Did y'all hear that?
Yes.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, there is no timetable set for his return as of yet.
Yeah.
We don't even know if he's going to be back this season. There's hopes. They were hoping that he'd be back by at least game 12, but right now there's no prognosis.
Yeah. And like I said, that they're getting production of the running backs, but McCaffrey adds a different element because he's so dangerous out of the backfield, and that's hard to defend. So, I mean, I'm a big Brock Purdy fan, but I don't know if he can carry the team like that without some help. So,
yeah, that's the trouble with Mason is a lack of ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. That's what they actually lose. So, but right now they're on top of their division at 3-3. I think they're 3-3, aren't they? They were 2-3. Yeah, they're 3-3. But then so is the Seahawks, but they had the tiebreak over the Seahawks. But moving on to Sunday's games, we had the Bears that played over in London. They beat up on the Jaguars 35-16. Young Caleb Williams seems to be hitting his stride. He threw 4 touchdown passes. He was 23 of 35, 234 yards, 4 TDs, and an interception. Uh, are we surprised that the Bears are 4-2, Doug?
You know what? I am very surprised because I had no faith in Caleb. I've been on this show talking about Caleb Williams and his being kind of weird. I wasn't sure he's emotionally.
You were talking about his black fingernails.
Yes, and I was not sure he was emotionally strong enough to carry through the rigors of a NFL season. But I'm going to give credit to the kid. He's made me eat some crow. So um, I hats off to him. That was a good. He's made a lot of strides from that first game where the defense pretty much scored and kept them in the win column to now where he's actually finding the end zone. So hats off to him.
Yeah, I found my crow tastes much better with a little garlic and a little salt and pepper. Dave, what'd you think?
Well, I'm in the same boat as Don. I was not a very optimistic about Caleb Williams, but he's looking very confident. I'm interested in this comparing him to Jaden Daniels as the season go on. And I think this week Caleb Williams kind of won the contest with their win over the Jags. It's a good time for a bye for the Bears because they lost their long snapper during the game, and Cole Kmet, who scored 2 touchdowns, he had to go in to be the long snapper, and then they managed to do it, not a problem. And I guess he said that the coach found out that he had done some long snapping when he had been in high school. And so then what they do is occasionally at practice, he'll practice a few times, and it came in handy because he ended up snapping for a good bit of the game. Now for the Jags, what's interesting is they get to stay in London. So it's kind of interesting. It's almost like, okay, well, that's going to be their home base for 2 games. I don't know how many games that they're going to have there, but now another team's going to have to fly in, adjust to the time zones, while the Jags are going to be sitting there. This will be their second week there. So, I'll be interested to see how they bounce back.
Hey, let me just tell you, there's worse fates out there than spending an extra week in London. I don't know if y'all have ever had the opportunity to go to London, but it's a very dynamic city. It's a good mix of people. They're British, well, yeah, but you got your Brits, you got a lot of people from India, you got
East
Egyptian.
Africa. And now it's I haven't been in Europe since the 80s, but now that they have the tunnel underneath and
the
I'm
tunnel.
sure, I'm sure, I remember when we laughed about that. They're going to build a tunnel, a channel, like you said, Donald, a channel, it's like, but yeah, now it's actually a reality. And there's a lot of traffic, and there's some kind of weird rule that you can only stay in certain countries for a certain number of days, and then if you live, you have to go back. I don't know, but it's some kind of travel restriction. But yeah, I suggest that anyone that has a chance to travel, please do go visit some other countries. It not only will it make you appreciate those countries, but it'll also make you appreciate America and what it stands for also.
Yep.
So,
Agree.
Enough of me on my soapbox. This is not my political show. I'm sorry, guys. But anyway, like I said, visit 2 or 3 other countries and you'll be glad to come home. So, the Bucks. They treated the storm-weary fans to a 51-27 victory over the the Saints. I don't know when sometime during the season we might start calling them the Aints again. But right now they're still the Saints. They scored that 94 points the first two games. But Baker Mayfield, he was 24 for 36, 4 TDs, but he also had 3 interceptions. And the Saints, they started their rookie quarterback, Spencer Rattler. Thoughts, Don?
So Baker Mayfield in a previous life played in the NFL. And his name is Brett Favre. Because that's like Brett Favre stats: 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, come out with the win.
Yep.
But Baker Mayfield is a good player. And even though he went to Oklahoma, I am kind of a fan of Baker Mayfield. I can tell you a story. Spring break, back when they were in college, my nephew, a guy named Zach Crabtree, who's now an offensive analyst for USC Trojans, Baker Mayfield, Mason Rudolph, they all shared a house during spring break in Florida. And so I just heard some stories about, because Baker Mayfield, he's a wild dude. I mean, he lives a different lifestyle. And you got Mason Rudolph, who, he goes to church every Sunday. So, it's just the dynamics. But they're actually, even though they played at rival schools, they're good friends, And so it's just very interesting. But I know Baker Mayfield hates Texas and all that, but I kind of like Baker Mayfield. I like the way he approaches the game. Like I said, I was a big Brett Favre fan, and so I can appreciate that. So and I think the Bucks right now. I'm thinking maybe Tampa Bay and Detroit, maybe in the NFC Championship. I mean, I would like to see that. That'd be fun to watch.
All right.
But the Saints, they're not. Spencer Rattler's going to have moments of greatness, and then he's going to fold, just like what cost him in Oklahoma, made him go to South Carolina. So he's got a limited shelf life in the NFL. I'll just put it that way.
Okay, you were wrong. You were wrong about Caleb. We'll see.
Yeah, well, keep in mind, hey, Caleb Williams beat out Spencer Rattler when he was in Oklahoma. So, we know that Spencer Rattler is a level below what Caleb Williams is, and Caleb Williams kind of struggled early in the season. So we'll see how that all ends up.
What do you think there, Dave? Is it almost time to change from the Saints to the Aints?
Well, I mean, they've had some injury problems. So they lost, Derek Carr, and I don't know whether, when or if they'll bring him back, or if they're going to stick with Spencer Rattler. He threw for 243 yards, but then he had 2 interceptions, and really the difference is Mayfield threw 4 touchdowns, where Rattler had 1, and I think that the Saints are kind of playing handicapped right now. And if they can get healthier as the year goes on and support Rattler, maybe they'll become competitive again. But right now, I think Tampa has the edge. I like Baker Mayfield like Don does. I consider him a real battler. When he was with Cleveland, he had an injury that required surgery. He played through the season for his franchise, and then they dumped him after the end of the season. And then he got his surgery, and then he tried to hook up with a couple teams. I think he was in Carolina and went somewhere on the West Coast. and it didn't work out. It looked like he was going to be washed up, and now he's he's making it happen in Tampa Bay, and I just admire his resilience and his keeping at it. He's not a quitter. He's a real battler, is what I'm saying. And I think that Cleveland messed up in dumping him for Anthony's buddy,
Mr. Massage.
Yeah.
Dave, Najee Harris has had his first 100-yard rushing game of this year. Najee runs for 106 yards on just 14 carries and has a TD. Justin Fields, he was 14 of 24 for 145 yards in the passing department. But he also had 11 rushes for 59 yards and 2 TDs. So what do you think here? Is it time to give Russ a try? Does excuse me? Does I can't think of the Fields? Does he have the confidence of the team? And maybe if we bench him now, but I mean he's a different kind of animal. Can our offensive line hold up to a Fields type quarterback right now, Dave?
Well, first, one bit of news on Najee. I mean, number one, he was running on beast mode. I was at the game, and he was just beastly. And I mean, you could see him strutting off the sideline. I mean, he was pumped. His 136-yard run where he launched himself to score the touchdown from 5 yards out was pretty cool to see. And what I liked about Najee is after the game, what he said, he didn't talk about himself. What he said is, hey, in order to have successful runs, it takes 11 players. And on his touchdown, it was Pat Freiermuth that sprung him loose to score the touchdown. Unfortunately, he showed up with an injury. He was limited in practice today with a rib injury. So I don't know if that's from the game. I don't think we just have to follow that during the week. But I imagine he's still going to be playing on Sunday night against the Jets. He's not missed a game since he's come into the league. Now, for the quarterback question, Mike Tomlin had his weekly Tomlin Tuesday. And what he basically said, to paraphrase Mike Tomlin, he said that Justin Fields has played great at times, but he wants to put the team in the best position to win, and they want to play great all the time. Now, that's not I'm paraphrasing what he said, but he's all but saying, hey, I'm going with Russell Wilson. Because also in that same conference, press conference, when he was being asked, he was getting a lot of questions. And they were saying, well, hey, how come you have the confidence in Russell Wilson where, last year, you just talked about wins for Kenny Pickett. And what Tomlin said was, well, last year was a completely different set of circumstances, different personality. You can't really compare. It's not so easy to compare those circumstances. But he said with Russell Wilson, he has confidence because he's already proven what he can do in the NFL, and that he believes that he has a shorter window in order to demonstrate that he's capable of taking over the reins. And he did work out with the first team offense today. So it really sounds like Mike Tomlin is going to be starting Russell Wilson, although he never said that. He said it's under consideration. But it sure sounds like he's going to be starting Russell Wilson. I think it's a risky move because if they lose or if Russell Wilson looks really bad, that's going to fall right back on Tomlin. But I think that what he's trying to do is Justin Fields is a great athlete. And what he was doing in that game is a lot of times he had to improvise. And a couple of his scores were because they were like broken plays. He didn't see the receiver or something happened. And then he was able to improvise in the game. And that's what Mike Tomlin said is he was asked, well, is Russell Wilson comparable to Justin Fields, with his legs? And Tomlin said, no. With Justin Fields, his legs are an X factor. So I think what it is it's that Tomlin views that he has 1A and 1B. He needs to get a chance to see if 1B, Russell Wilson, can make the offense work a little bit smoother because the Steelers have not been scoring very many points. They did score 32 in this game, but the Raiders are really a damaged team. They were missing their top three receivers, one of which is now with the Jets, and so the Steelers might end up playing against them finally, but with a different team. And it just seemed like Justin would either miss an open receiver or his passes just weren't quite on target, so that the offense was herky-jerky. And I think that what Mike Tomlin is looking for is for a smoother, more consistent performance. So we'll see what happens there. The defense continues to bend. The Raiders, despite having all these injuries and missing a lot of places, they were moving down the field. But then guys like T.J. Watt, they're about to score. They're on the 5-yard line. He punches the ball out at the 2-yard line as the guy's about to go in for a touchdown. And the Steelers recover the ball, preventing the Raiders from scoring. And he punched the ball out twice for Pittsburgh recoveries. And then Dante Jackson had a interception. And that happened with like 8 minutes and 10 minutes to play. And as soon as he intercepted the ball, the Raiders fans just started filing out of the stadium. I've never seen anything like that because there was still over 8 minutes to play. And they're unassing the stadium. So we'll see. The offensive line, Broderick Jones is having some problems. I mean, there was one play where he thought it was a running play and it was a passing play, and he's literally standing there and everybody's past him, and he's standing by his lonesome at the line of scrimmage, and so they really need to fix things. So the one good thing is it looks like Alex Highsmith may be coming back to play. So that will be a welcome addition to the defense.
Okay. The Green Bay Packers wide receiver Romeo Doubs returns from a 1-game suspension with a vengeance. Doubs had 2 TD passes of the 4 thrown by Jordan Love. And the Packers are also 4-2, beating the Cardinals 34-13. So let's talk about that division a little bit there, Dave. We have the undefeated Vikings. Then we have the 4-1 Lions. And then we have the 4-2 Packers and the 4-2 Bears. I don't know. What do you think about that? What's the NFC North there, Dave?
Well, I mentioned this last week that I felt that the NFC the NFC North was now the toughest, most competitive division in the NFL. Where going into this season, I would have awarded that to the AFC North. And last year, I certainly felt that. But right now, with Caleb Williams, the way he's playing, I mean, the Bears are competitive. The Packers got Love back, because remember he was hurt a little bit. He threw 4 touchdowns. They're a tough team. The Vikings are undefeated, and they've been playing lights out. And then Detroit just destroyed Dallas. Unfortunately, they lost Aiden Hutchinson, and he's on injured reserve. He was actually sacking Dak Prescott and bringing him down on him, and then I think it was his tibia that snapped, and he had to have surgery right there in Dallas. So he's probably not coming back for the season, and that's a huge loss for Detroit on their defense. But that's a to me, right now I consider them, from top to bottom, that's the most competitive division in the NFL.
You agree, Don?
I do. I just think that that division is so dynamic. I mean, who'd have thought the Vikings would be where they are right now, right? And of course, Detroit is just amazing. Like I said, Detroit is my favorite to win the NFC. So put me down for that. And Dallas is terrible, but even though Dallas is terrible, they're still a professional football team, and Detroit just bent them over and did things that are illegal in several states. So it was just a fun thing to watch. I wish Demetrius was on tonight to be able to give us his input.
Yes, I do. Don, the Colts backup, Joe Flacco, he was 22 for 38, 192 yards, 2 TDs in a 2017 victory over the Titans. Don, do you think that the Colts, Anthony Richardson, he's due back next week? You still got questions about him?
Well, just before I get to that, let's say Flacco is another guy that has impressed me. I would not have guessed that he would step up and take over like he did. So, hats off to Joe Flacco. I think when he does return, I think that they'll just make the Colts that much better. Right now, I would consider the Colts a great team at all, but they play scrappy and they can they can put some hurt on people who aren't expecting it, and they play well as a team. So they're capable of doing some damage. Their defense is playing not spectacular, but they're very solid, and so they if they keep the other team from outscoring the offense, then they should continue. They should continue to have some success. But like I said, Flacco has been a very pleasant surprise for the Colts this year.
Yeah, unpleasant.
I think they have a similar situation to Pittsburgh, where you have 2 different quarterbacks, 2 different stages of their careers, 2 different qualities. Anthony Richardson can do things that Joe Flacco can't do. Joe Flacco can do things that Anthony Richardson can't do because he's a veteran. He can process things much faster. So I think it'll be interesting to see how the Colts utilize him. And it may be that, hey, they bring Anthony Richardson back, confident in knowing that, hey, at any point they can bring Joe Flacco in. And like he did against the Steelers, he didn't miss a beat. And I think that at quarterback that they're actually in a kind of a nice position.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to mention, the Packers Cardinals game, Marvin Harrison Jr. was knocked out of that game with a concussion.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see if he loses any time, because he was emerging as, the weapon, for Arizona. So, they could be missing a significant weapon there.
yeah. Well, he was drafted as the weapon. So, uh, Dave, Texas quarterback C.J. Stroud was 20 for 31, 192 yards, three TDs, and an interception. Uh, Joe Mixon, he returned, and he carried the ball 13 times. He had 102 yards and a TD. Uh, but the Pats rookie, Drake May, he also threw the ball over 30 times. He was 20 for 33, 243 yards, three TDs, and two interceptions in his debut. Thoughts on that game?
Well, the other thing that happened to Drake May, he also lost the fumble. So he was responsible for three turnovers in that game, and that's, hey, he was a rookie. He was going in. The Patriots are not that strong of a team, so it's not surprising. But he's also showing some talent, with the three touchdown passes. I think in the Texans were laying some pressure on him. So I think the Texans are a pretty complete team. Uh, I'll be interested to see how they continue this year, because they had some close games that could have gone either way, and they figured out a way to win them. And now, if they can start putting away these games that they need to, well, they should be positioning themselves very well for the playoff picture.
What's your thoughts on that other team in Texas, Don?
Oh,
And Drake May.
I'm very bullish on the Texans. They've had their struggles, here in the early season, but they're putting together. I think Stroud is still the guy to watch out for, because he's he had such a great year last year, and he's just kind of building on that. But yeah, the Texans are. I mean, let's face it, they're the best team in Texas, no matter what some people think. As much as I love Dak Prescott, I think Stroud's a better quarterback. So um, people realize Texans have a good defense too. So they're very very scrappy as well.
Don, the Eagles wide receiver, he makes his return, A.J. Brown. They targeted him 9 times. He caught 6 of those 9 passes for 116 yards and a TD in his return. Jalen Hurts, he attempted 25 passes. He clicked on 16 for 264 yards and a TD in the 2016 victory over the Clowns. Mr. Massage, he was 16 for 23 and 168 yards, and the Clowns fall to 1-5. Your thoughts, Don?
Yeah. So the Browns are. The struggle is going to start continuing. They're starting to revert back to the Browns that we saw, 10, 15 years ago, when they couldn't buy a victory. And thing is, the season's not going to get any easier for them. And I would think now, the Eagles won, but I wasn't all impressed with the Eagles win. I mean, I know they won, but nothing really stood out to me. So, is it just two mediocre teams playing? Well, hang on. Browns are worse than mediocre, but I consider the Eagles mediocre. But it just wasn't a game that caught my attention. Granted, I only watched snippets because I was going back and forth, but Jalen Hurts, he struggled so much last year, and this year he's maybe slightly better than he was last year, but he still needs to up his game a notch.
Dave.
Well, I agree with Don that it was not an impressive win. I mean, the Browns are decimated, and they've lost all these linemen. They lost another line during the game. They lost the center that had not been their starter, and then they had to bring in a third string center because the second string guy was already out. And in fact, the Eagles fans were booing Sirianni, and then he's engaging the fans that are booing him. So that's typical Philadelphia. I'm not surprised by that at all. But here you have a team, the Eagles and the Cowboys. I thought that they were going to be fighting for first place in the NFC East at this point. I wasn't expecting much from the Giants, and I wasn't expecting much from Washington. And Washington has, with the rookie quarterback, is in first place over a Jalen Hurts quarterback team and a Dak Prescott quarterback team. And so there's I think that there's some problems there, and I think that the Eagles' defense is a little suspect. They've had problems with their secondary. Cleveland, they haven't even scored 20 points yet this year. I think that they're the only team not to have scored 20 points this year, and and they just got rid of I think it's their number one or number two receiver, Amari Cooper.
Number one.
So their number one. They just got rid of him. So I think that they're already cashing in.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that down the line here. Whether or not they're cashed in for the season when we talk about the trade. But let's see. Moving on here. The Ratbirds quarterback, Lamar Jackson, he attempted 26 passes. He clicked on 20 of them. He had 323 yards, a TD, and an interception. But King Henry, he had 24 carries for 132 yards and 2 TDs. But when you talk about that young rookie, Jalen Daniels, he was, what was this? I think this 24, he attempted 33 passes. He clicked on 24. He had 289 yards passing and 2 TDs. And the Ratbirds win 30-23. But I was impressed with the young quarterback. 229 yards, 2 TDs. I think he held his own as far as the matchup between him and Lamar Jackson was concerned. But King Henry turned out to be the wild card in this to me. What do you think here, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, for Washington, Terry McLaurin he caught both of the touchdowns from Daniels. And right. McLaurin was actually a guy I'd been hoping at the beginning of the year that was maybe somebody that the Steelers would be able to trade for, but that's not going to happen now.
Yeah, we call him Scary Terry in the fantasy world, but
right. And now Derrick Henry, he's running with passion. And I think that between Derrick Henry, the other difference was the 3 field goals by Justin Tucker. And that unfortunately for Washington, their running back, was it Robinson?
Yeah,
he didn't play. He was out, and so Washington had no run game. and that really hurt. That was probably the difference right there. Baltimore had a run game, Washington did not, and but it was a good game.
Don.
Yeah, so Baltimore is another team that is always in the hunt. Lamar Jackson, proven commodity. Henry, proven commodity. Um, but yeah, I agree with Dave. The fact that Washington struggles in the running area, that's going to be a concern because you're trying to depend on a rookie quarterback, and he's good. Don't get me wrong, but that's a lot of pressure and stress to put on a first year guy. You got to have guys who can carry the rock and put take pressure off your QB. So, but that game was fun to watch. Baltimore is always interesting because you never know what Lamar is going to do. But I think that when it's all said and done, I think Baltimore will, they'll be competing with Kansas City for that AFC title.
Yeah,
So
and the running back I was trying to think of was Brian Robinson.
Yeah, Brian
But he
Robinson.
didn't play, but he's practicing, so they're hoping to have him back for next week. So we'll see. But as long as he doesn't get re-injured.
Yeah. Well, and Eckler is nowhere near the back he used to be for the Chargers. So, it's. But I am impressed with the young kid, Jalen Daniels. I'm not sure. Uh, uh, Maybe even a little bit more than I am with Caleb Williams. But that's a conversation we'll probably have toward the end of the season. Don, the Chargers beat the Broncos in a division game, 23-16. The Chargers are 3-2. The Broncos are 3-3. Anything stand out to you in this game?
Well, only that the fact that you going back through history, the Chargers versus Denver was always, I alluded to the Yankees and the Dodgers earlier. To me, Chargers Broncos, it's not that big of the rivalry, but it is the classic one, and I think both teams are looking for a way to break through, and I think probably in the long run, I probably think that maybe the Chargers will have a better record. I don't see any of them making the playoffs, but they're very they're competitive, and these are teams that I don't think will get. These are teams I don't see getting blown out like the Cowboys did. Some teams just they'll put up a fight. So said always a good time when these two teams meet.
Any comments on this game, Dave?
Yeah, I think a big difference maker is that Denver lost Patrick Surtain after the first defensive play. He was knocked out of the game with
a concussion. Yeah,
after one play. So that kind of that opens things up for the Chargers, and I think that they took advantage of it. And Dobbins, he ran for 96 yards, but then Justin Herbert threw for 237 and a touchdown. And then for Denver, Bo Nix is who led them with rushing with 61 yards. And he threw an interception, and Javonte Williams fumbled away a ball. So it should have been a close. I think if Patrick Surtain had been in for that whole game, it might have been a closer game. Might have been tighter. But hey, I think it's going to be interesting. How long is Patrick Surtain going to be out? Because with the concussion protocols, he could be back practicing very, very quickly and playing next week, which in rugby they would not allow. if you're diagnosed with a concussion, you're out for you would be missing at least a game, and so it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And now the Chargers are a team that got decimated by injuries early, but now you look at the Raiders and you look at the Broncos. Well, if they can kind of catch up with Kansas City, maybe they could get a wild card spot. Maybe it'll be interesting.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see who will be in the wild card spot. A five loss team, maybe a 4 loss team. We'll see. Uh, the Lions quarterback Jared Goff, he was 18 of 25 for 315 yards and 3 TDs. David Montgomery, he had 12 carries for 80 yards, but he had 2 TDs. The Lions 47-9 beat down of the Cowgirls. Comes at a price. The Lions lose their defensive end, Aiden Hutchinson. Dave, I'm going to let you take the side of the Lions.
Well, I mean that's going to be a huge loss to overcome, and I think I mentioned it when we talked about the AFC North. I think that all of a sudden, I think where before I would have been saying, hey, I kind of favored Detroit to win the division. Right now, I think Minnesota may have gotten into the driver's seat, and that's going to be decided this coming weekend, which we'll be talking about a little bit later.
Yeah.
That's a big game right there. And how does Detroit adapt to? I mean, to me, this would be like losing T.J. Watt for the Steelers defense.
Well, it is. He was the lead. He's the NFL leader in sacks, isn't he?
Was he leading with sacks?
I'm pretty sure he was the sack leader.
Yeah. But but the thing is with the Cowboys, they are so they have so much talent, and all I want to say is happy birthday, Jerry.
Don, the Cowgirls quarterback, Dak Prescott, he was 17 of 33 for 178 yards. What's that per pass? What's he make? A little over $1 million a game or something like that?
Yes.
Wonder how that figures out. 17 to 34. And CD Lamb, he had 14 targets. He caught 7 of them, and he only had 89 yards. Don, you wishing Jerry a happy birthday too?
Well, the Cowboys are like a paper tiger. I mean, you get past all the glitz and all the publicity and all the hoorahs and all that, and they're just a very below average team when it comes right down to it. Every once in a while, they'll beat a team they're not supposed to beat, but usually, they're getting beat by everybody of every caliber. If the Cowboys were to play Cleveland, I think the Cowboys would beat Cleveland, but it'd be like a 1 point game. I mean, that's how. I mean, that's how terrible they are. And keep in mind, I like Dak Prescott. I think he's a wonderful human being. He has a great story. But Jerry Jones refuses to give him uh, tools to work with. I mean, their defense is questionable outside maybe two guys.
And both of them are out.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. And so, I don't know. I think that until someone like has a coup d'état in the general manager's office, it's going to get worse.
Uh, well, I wonder what would happen if Jerry threatened to sell the team. Anyway, Don, the Falcons beat the Panthers for their third straight victory over a division rival. Uh, the Falcons running back, Bijan Robinson, he carried 15 times for uh, wow, 1,000 yards in one game. I knew I mistook that one there. But anyway, he had 195 yards, two TDs, and running back Tyler Algier, he had 18 carries for 105 yards and a TD. The banker, uh, Mr. Cousins, he was 19 for 30. He had 225 yards and a TD. Are the Falcons getting back on track here, Don?
Yeah, so keep in mind the Falcons are winning with Kirk Cousins as their QB. Can he maintain it? I would love to see Kirk Cousins, lead them into the playoffs. And I hate talking about him because I'm afraid I'm going to jinx him, but I would love to see the Falcons do well. I
Uh,
think I think all year they've kind of underutilized Bijan Robinson, but hey, what happens when you give him the rock? Good things happen.
yeah, and that kid Algier, he isn't too bad.
Yeah.
Backing up Bijan, I know Bijan is a Longhorn, right? So
Hmm.
so we know all praises be to Bijan. Uh, Sunday night, Dave, the Bungles quarterback Joe Burrows, he runs for a TD, and the Bungles defense steps up to beat the Little People, 17-7. Your thoughts on that game?
Well, I mean, kind of a listless game. I mean, the two big plays. I think it was the opening drive, and Joe Burrow ran 40 yards for a touchdown to go up 7-0. Then the Bengals tried to fumble the ball away at the end of the game in the fourth quarter, but lucky for them, it went out of bounds.
Yeah,
Otherwise, the Giants might have recovered it. And then Chase Brand ran 30 yards for a fourth quarter touchdown so that's 14 of their 17 points. And that was it. But still, the Giants had kind of been showing some life. They were showing some competitiveness, and I think that the Bengals, Joe Burrow is, in previous games he was showing that he can be very dangerous, and now he showed that he could run too, and do it with his arms. I wanted to mention something about that Falcons Panthers game real quick. It was what Atlanta did is like last week. Cousins threw for like over 500 yards. This week, Algier actually outgained Bijan Robinson, and together they gained 200 yards and scored 3 touchdowns. So they're showing that they're more than just relying on Cousins, and they'll go to the ground, or if they need to pass, that they'll try to have Cousins pass for more yardage. But it was an interesting transition. Of course, Carolina is just sad sack.
well, like I said, that was their third division rival. So uh, it would seem like if the Falcons get to a position, they definitely are the tiebreakers over all of these teams so far. Monday Night Football. No Salah, no problem. The not yet still find a way to lose. Ayahuasca attempted 35 passes. He completed 23 of them. He had 294 yards for 2 TDs and an interception. The not yets fall to the Bills 23-20. Dave.
Well, I mean, one thing that we saw is Aaron Rodgers can still heave the ball. At the end of the first half, he threw the ball 52, actually more than 52 yards, because I think that the ball was caught 6 or 7 yards into the end zone. So I think it was probably close to a 60-yard pass.
Hail Mary.
And that was to come within three. The teams exchanged field goals. I was expecting Buffalo to kind of win this game pretty handily. And Josh Allen had 2 touchdowns, but the difference in the game was that finally Buffalo had kicked the fourth quarter field goal to break a 2020 tie, and the Jets missed their field goal attempt.
Yeah,
So
they had 2 of them that they missed, both of them off the same
the
upright.
left goalpost, I think, and
Yeah.
then Rodgers, ended the game with it. It was a desperation pass, 3rd and 16. He's just heaving it up there, and that was intercepted to ice the game. But I mean, Rodgers his arm he still has some life in that arm. There's some quarterbacks you see. I remember watching Charlie Batch, this is years ago, and he was starting for Pittsburgh because Ben was hurt or something, and he didn't have anything left on his arm. He was like a noodle arm, and it wasn't there. But you see somebody like Aaron Rodgers, and it's still spicy. I mean, he can heave it.
Don, what do you think? What did you think of that Monday night game?
Well, I'm like Dave. I was very impressed that Aaron Rodgers did as well as he did. So again, I had to eat some crow about Caleb Williams because I thought he wouldn't be doing this well this early. Got to apologize for Aaron Rodgers because I thought he would. I thought he'd be on injury reserve by this time of the season, and he's just coming out and stinging it. So I actually thought the Jets deserved to win. They had their chances, but uh, I figured Buffalo would beat them 10, 12 points, and it was a much closer game than I expected. And again, I think the Jets probably missed some chances to come away with the win. But yeah, Aaron Rodgers still stinging. That's good.
Well, guys, now do not yet stay reunited. Devontae Adams with ayahuasca for a conditional 3rd-round pick. Now that ayahuasca has his old pal Devontae Adams and Lazard, what impact do you think that's going to have on wide receiver Garrett Wilson, Don?
Well, I think just adds to Arsenal. I mean, Garrett Wilson is a unique talent, and having Adams back will just add to Rogers' toolbox. So, there might be a disparity in targets, but I think when it's all said and done, both guys are going to contribute. Both guys are going to get their points, and who knows that? I mean, they might have. They might win some games this year they're not expected to. They're a much better team than I figured they would be.
What about you, Dave? Do you
Well,
think there's going to be a diminished role for Garrett Wilson? I mean, it already seems to me like Lazard is his favorite target. Now I know this is not the Adams that he had back in Green Bay, but you know how Aaron is about his old friends.
well, they have a slew of wide receivers, and I think that I know one of the things that was being discussed over in Steelers land was Mike Williams and the possibility of getting him for a song and dance. And but I think what's going to happen, I think Rodgers is he has his friends, but he's going to spread the ball around. He's been in the league long enough, and he knows that sometimes you need to make a wide receiver happy. So he'll spread the ball around. And if they want to win, that's what they're going to do.
Okay. Dave, the Bills, they acquired a wide receiver, Amari Cooper, from the Clowns. The Bills get Cooper and a 6th-round pick next year. The Clowns get a 3rd and a 7th. Dave, had the Clowns thrown in the towel for this season, getting rid of the number 1 wide receiver?
I think so. I mean, here's the thing: that their offensive line is decimated, so they're having a hard time protecting Dak Prescott. He doesn't have time to throw the ball, and when he does throw the ball, Amari Cooper wasn't producing very much there, and they haven't even scored 20 points yet this year. So I don't know how they're going to turn that team around, and by trading away your best wide receiver, the only they got Jerry Jeudy, I guess, but it just seems to me is that they're positioning themselves for the draft.
Yeah.
They won't say that, but I just don't see how they can turn it. Now they may surprise. They always play Pittsburgh tough. We still have to play them twice, but I don't expect Cleveland to be making any kind of a comeback this season. And this just indicates that, hey, when you're trying to strengthen your team, you're doing what Buffalo has done. You're doing what the Jets have done. They're acquiring talent, not trading it away.
What do you think here, Don? When you talk about the Clowns throwing in the towel already, no number 1 wide receiver. Jared Jeudy isn't even relevant in fantasy football, let alone real football.
He's on my fantasy team, and I haven't won a game this year.
Go ahead, Don.
Well, you say throw in the towel. I think the season started. The towel was already in the middle of the ring. I mean, they're just bad. I think, they've given it. I think they're in pole position trying to get, in the draft. I think they're trying to. Some teams build through free agents, some build the draft. So I think they're going to go more of the draft route this year. The fact that Cooper is in Buffalo now, I think that gives Buffalo an extra shot. I think that is what Josh Allen needs is a guy like that to go to. So the Browns. The thing about the Browns is they can't get much worse than they are. But the Buffalo can get better, and I think they just did.
Well, now I'm gonna, just throwing it out there because everybody's talking about the Browns and the number 1 draft choice. Well, the number 1 draft choice might be the son of Prime, Mr. Stevens. Shakur. Do you think that Prime might pull a Manning family thing? We're not going there, son. I mean, what do you think? You think Prime would let his son go to the Clowns? Done.
Well, I mean, when it's all said and done, I mean, the kid's an adult. He doesn't have to, I guess he could listen to his dad's advice, but it doesn't mean he has to take his dad's advice. But
it worked for Eli, though, didn't it?
What's that?
It worked for Eli. He got a Super Bowl.
Well, but was that Eli or was that his family? I mean,
the family said that he wasn't going to play for the Chargers, and the Chargers had first rights. You see he ended up with the Giants, right? Do you think
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying? Do you think Prime will do the same thing anywhere but there?
it's possible. I mean, but you have to find a team that really needs a quarterback. So I think Cleveland would fall in that category. We talked about, some other teams. Maybe someone needs a project. To me, Shedeur Sanders is a project. I don't. He's not going to come into the league ready to play. He's going to be a 2 to 3 year developmental guy. I believe.
Okay.
So you got to find the right spot. Maybe Arizona, because Kyler Murray's having some struggles, and so
What do you think, Dave? You think Prime might nix that going to the Browns
Well,
anywhere but there?
first, I want to identify the happiest person with what's transpired with Cleveland with this. It's not Baker Mayfield. It's Johnny Manziel. The heat's finally off of him, I think. But I think it's a really interesting question. Because on the one hand, if you have the confidence that, hey, you are a difference maker, that you're a franchise quarterback that can make a difference, then you might say, hey, come on, I'll go there. On the other hand, if he did not want to, based on their history, I don't know how many starting quarterbacks they've had in the last few years, 23 or whatever the number is. But it could be what the Browns could do is to affect the trade and maybe gain some trade down for some additional draft picks, because they've suffered a lot of injuries and they may need to rebuild their team, and they are supposed to be getting Nick Chubb back at some point.
Nick Chubb's supposed to come back. He's supposed to be back this week, supposedly.
Yeah. Now the thing is like, yeah, he might come back practicing, but when is he going to be game ready? And that might take more than a week or two.
Well, Ford is out. Ford is injured.
Yeah, but what you don't want to do is you don't want to put Chubb in too early, where before he because he's been out for a long time now, and they need to get him game ready. And but that'll be a good thing for Cleveland. And then if I don't know where Don just went. He might have hit the wrong button there. But I think that what might serve Cleveland right is to trade down and to, rather than to draft for a quarterback, is to rebuild that team, and specifically their offensive line, because that's been decimated. And I don't know how many of those guys are going to be back.
Yeah, true that. You want to give us the stats from last week?
Sure. So in the spread, Bill had 8 of 14 correct. James, you had 10 of 14 correct, and I was took the lead. I had 11 of 14. So, but for the year, Bill continues to lead, having 60.5% correct predictions on the spread. You're at 54.4%, and I'm at 57.8%. On the over-under from last week, I did horribly. I only got 4 of 14 correct on the spread. Bill did much better. He did twice as good as me. He had 8 of 14 correct. But James, you're the top dog. You got 9 out of the 14 of the over-unders from last week correct. So for the year, I'm at 56.7%. James, you're at 47.3%. Actually, Don's at 48.9%. Hopefully he'll come on for his picks. And but Bill, he's the one leading the way. He's at 58.1% correct on the over/under picks.
Okay. I think Don's joined us from his phone. He might be out of juice. He found that much easier than his computer.
Right.
There he is. All right. We got him back just in time for the predictions. So let's get started here. Our Thursday night game is the Denver Broncos -3 at the New Orleans Saints. That's home field advantage. The over/under is 37.
No.
I guess I'll start out with that one. I will take the Broncos minus the points, and I will say this is under.
Okay. Did you bring Don back on?
Yeah, Don was here. Don, you still there? I saw him there for a minute. Where'd he go? Yeah, there he is. There's Don. We can't hear you.
I think he needs to enter the studio.
Let's see.
There he is.
Okay, yeah, we got you back. All right.
Sorry about that. For some reason, my phone kicked me off. So I'll go Denver in the under.
That leaves you, Dave.
Yeah, and you said it's 37 no hook and Denver's -3, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all in the same car. Denver in the under.
Okay. Sunday morning, the Patriots plus 5.5 against the Jaguars. The over/under is 42.5. Dave?
Yeah, the Jacksonville has been there for 2 weeks. The Patriots are going to be coming in, and I'm going to take, even though that's a pretty good spread, I'm going to take Jacksonville in the under.
Yeah, I'm going to follow that car.
I'll make it 3. Jackson in the under.
Okay. Oh man, and here's the one that.
Hey, Don, did you hear how I did on the over/unders last week?
No.
I was 4 of 14 last week.
Oh wow.
So you might not want to follow me too close.
But Don did good, right?
I went on last week.
Bill was here. Bill was on last week.
Okay. Okay. And one of the big games this week, we have the Lions at the Vikings. The Lions are getting 1.5, and the over/under is 51. I'm going to take Demetrius's place tonight. I'm going to take the Lions, and I'm going to take the over. Yeah. I still have my doubts about Aiden, but I think this week they'll step up. In the long run, maybe he'll break down, but I think Detroit will step up this week. Give the Vikings that first loss. Dave?
I'm going to go. I'm still concerned about Hutchinson. It's Detroit gets 1.5, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to take Minnesota in the over.
Don?
I'm going to take Detroit in the over.
Okay. Don, we got a division rival here. We got the Eagles -3 at the Giants, and the over/under is 43.
What is it? I missed. What is it? Philly -3.
Philly -3, and the over/under is 43.
Okay.
I'll go Philly in the under.
I'm going to go Philly in the over. What are you going, Dave?
I'm going Philly in the under.
Okay. Another division rival here, Dave. The Bungles against the Clowns. The Bungles are getting are -6, and the over/under is 41.5.
-6. I'm still going to take Cincinnati, but the under. I just don't have confidence in Cleveland. We'll see, but I'm taking Cincinnati in the under.
I am too.
I'll go Cincinnati in the under. I don't think Cleveland can score to make it over.
Okay. The Titans are getting 9. They're at the Bills, and the over/under is 41. I'm taking the Bills and the over. Done.
I go with the Bills in the under.
Okay. Dave?
I'm going with Mason Rudolph in the over.
Ooh.
Tennessee.
Okay. All right. Okay, Dave. We have the Texans +3 at the Packers, and the over/under is 47.5. I'm taking the Texans in the under.
I go Texans under also.
I'm taking the Texans in the over.
Okay. Seahawks and Falcons. Seahawks are giving the Seahawks are +3, and the over/under is 51. I'm going to take the Falcons in the under.
I go Falcons under also.
And I'm going Atlanta in the over just simply because Kirk Cousins. I mean, the 500 yards last week was no joke. So I'm going to stick to that.
Okay, and Seattle doesn't travel well, so you might be right there. Dave, the Finns +3 at the Colts. Over/under is 43.5.
Oh, I thought I had this down. Hold on, I gotta find this on my little.
Which one?
Computer. You said it's what's the game again?
Miami against the Colts.
Oh, for some reason, I don't have it on here.
It's a 10 a.m. game, and they're playing at the Colts.
How do I not have it on here? Okay, Miami, Indiana, and then what's the spread?
43.5.
That's the over under. What's the spread?
+3. Miami is +3. They're giving.
Oh yeah, I did have that on there somewhere. I just don't see it. I'm still going to take Indiana and the under.
I'm going to take. I'm going to take Indy in the under.
I'm gonna take Indiana in the over.
Okay. The Panthers +8 at the Commanders. Over under is 51.5. Don.
I go Commanders in the under.
I'm going to go Commanders in the over.
And I'm going Commanders in the under.
Okay. The Raiders and the Rams. The Raiders are getting 6.5. The over under is 43.5. I'm going to take the Rams in the under.
I'll go Rams and under also.
I'm going to do the Rams in the over. So 2 unders and an over.
Yeah. Okay. The 1 o'clock, the late 1 o'clock game, 125, Kansas City getting 1.5 at the 40.
Undefeated Kansas City is getting points.
Kansas City is getting Kansas City plus 1.5. Well, because they're playing at the 49ers. So they're probably getting home field advantage, which would be 3, but they cut it in half. So it's Kansas City plus 1.5, and the over-under is 47. I'm going to take Kansas City. No, I'm going to take Kansas City and the over.
I concur. Kansas City in the over.
And I'm taking San Francisco in the over.
Okay.
That should be a fun game to watch.
Yes,
It
sir.
will be. It'll be a very fun game.
And the Sunday night game will be the Not Yets against the Steelers. I think, let's see, the Steelers are giving the Not Yets 1.5, and the over-under is 38. I'm going to take the Steelers and the under.
I'm going to take Steelers in the under also.
Okay, and then help me out with the spread in the over-under again.
Okay, the Jets are minus 1.5, and the over-under is 38.
I'm taking Pittsburgh in the over.
Okay.
So the Jets are actually favored.
No, the Steelers are favored by 1.5.
But they're getting 1.5.
No, that's right. No, the Jets are favored by 1.5 over the Steelers at home.
Wow, disrespect.
Disrespect.
Ranger, come here.
Still taking Pittsburgh in the over.
Ranger.
Okay. I think we have another Monday night where we have 2 games, right?
Yep.
Okay, so the first game is the Ratbirds at the Buccaneers. The Ratbirds are minus 3.5, and the over-under is 49.5. I'm going to take the Ratbirds. I hate saying this. I'm going to take the Ratbirds in the over.
I'm gonna take Baltimore in the over also.
That's 3 of us, and I hope I'm wrong.
Okay. And the last game is the Chargers minus 2.5. They're playing the Cardinals, and the over-under is 43.5. I'm going to take the Cardinals and the over.
I'm going to take the Cardinals and the under.
Break the
And I'm
tie.
taking the Chargers in the under.
Okay. Final thoughts, Don?
Final thoughts. Well, good to be back with y'all this week. Got a lot going on right now. I am going to the Texas Georgia game Saturday, and then I'm taking my girlfriend. I have a girlfriend now. She's a Spanish teacher at school, and so she is from Mexico, and I'm looking forward to spend some time with her. And that's my final thoughts. I have nothing really other than go hook 'em horns, go Longhorns.
Okay. Hey, congratulations, Don.
Thank you.
You going to be attending any of those games in Mexico City now, Don?
I don't know. She's from Monterrey, which is northern Mexico. So
Good food.
yeah.
Good food. Oh, go ahead, Dave. Final thoughts. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. So, this past weekend I was in Las Vegas for the game. Had a wonderful time. I got to meet Duval Love, who played for the Steelers from '92 to '94. I met Dermontti Dawson, who's in the Hall of Fame, played from '98 to 2000. And it was really cool to see the continuity between former Steelers players that played decades and decades ago in the current fan base, a lot of which never even saw him play, either of them play. And the other thing that was kind of cool, I didn't go to this tailgate, but Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell were at the same tailgate. And, they were charging $100 a pop for people to go in there. But I thought it was kind of cool. Sadly for Le'Veon Bell, his dog died, was at the vet and died. He got a call while he was at the tailgate. He was almost in tears from the people that were there relating to me, but they said he composed himself and he stayed. And they both were, with the Steelers fans. This weekend is really big for me. My college, it was California University of Pennsylvania. Now it's Penn West, California in Pennsylvania, but being inducted into our rugby club's Hall of Fame. So, they've had a rugby club there for 50 years, and I'm part of the inaugural, the first class of inductees into their Hall of Fame. So I'm kind of humbled by that. And but afterwards, I'm driving to Pittsburgh because Saturday evening I'm attending the Steelers alumni dinner where they're honoring the 1974 Steelers team. And that's going to be cool. Joe Green's going to be there. Lynn Swan's going to be there. Rocky Blyer. Sadly, we lost Franco Harris and we've lost a lot of those players. But, I'm looking forward to seeing some of these players. And a lot of them were there for the 72 last year whenever they celebrated the 50th anniversary of the Immaculate Reception. So, and then, of course, probably Bradshaw and Jack Lambert, they probably won't be there, but it's going to be cool to see these guys from the 70s, and there'll be a lot of other Steelers alumni there. And then Sunday night, I'll be in the stadium cheering on the Steelers, and hopefully that they can pull off another victory.
We got to get some more pictures of you with the icicles, Dave. We are
After the Buffalo game. Well, you know what? The amazing contrast was going to Las Vegas, this Allegiant Stadium, and I don't know if either of you have been there.
Yeah. Remember I was telling you about the monorail?
It's like 90 degrees out, and then you're inside the stadium. It's like 74 degrees. You're just like in a polo shirt, just very, very comfortable. And my buddy actually got me field club tickets, which are like the PSLs in the section that we were sitting in are $75,000 a seat. And, but then in the field club, lobster tail, jumbo shrimp, sliced roast beef. You ask them, how you want it, and then they'll give you, rare, medium rare, whatever, in an open bar. I mean, it was just insane. I mean, it was. I was just like, wow, this is really something else. I mean, Acrisure Stadium is like a small college stadium comparison, even though they're about the same capacity, but it just doesn't hold a candle to it.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, hey, as usual, thanks for your time. Appreciate, and we'll see you next Wednesday right here talking some more sports.
All right.
All right.
Good night, guys.
All right, guys. Have a good night. Have a great weekend. Talk to you all next week.
All right.
See you soon.
Ciao.